I remember, you know, sighing some relief thinking, God, I got my first TV, then it was taken away from me. Now we're going to do a second series. Wow.
You do a first series and then you wait for that great moment where you think, oh, we've got a second series. I always remember them as being quite sweaty times, you know? Am I ever going to work again?
The second series was commissioned before the first one went out. And the rumour has it, if the second series hadn't been commissioned before the first one went out, they wouldn't have recommissioned it.
I think it was clear enough by the end of the transmission of the first series that we'd got something that people were really quite specially hooked into here.
The viewing figures for the first show were actually very good. I think it was 5.3 million, and we were second or third on BBC Two.
The expectation really within the BBC system at that time was if you always did it in 6 or 7s, and if they worked, you'd come back and do more next year.
And we thought, great, because now we know what we want to do. We've hit the seam and we're ready.
You know, you're never satisfied with anything you do anyway, so you just want everything to be better. Funnier, stories better, acting better, set better, look better, sophistication better, effects, more of them, just everything, just better.
Right, we're up to speed, stand by.
That was the lovely thing. By the end of that first series, Rob and Doug's imagination was on a roll.
I remember Rob and Doug coming to Ed and me to ask if we could do an entire episode underwater. To which Ed went, and I went, no. And then we actually started trying to work out ways that we could do an entire episode underwater, which I think is where Backwards came from, which happened later in the next series, because if they couldn't do it underwater, they'd do the whole thing back to front.
We didn't like that first series, and we asked the BBC not to repeat it, which I thought was, you know, a key reason in ultimately the series being a success.
There is a wisdom in the business that you shouldn't actually even judge a series until show 10 or 12, because it hasn't. You have to write the crap out of it before you find the meat.
After weeks and weeks of editing on the first series, the mistakes start to scream out at you, really.
We moved away from the World War II submarine look. That was, say, stated at the very first meeting, and I think by sort of episodes 3 and 4, the show was growing.
I was slightly obsessed at the beginning without having too much colour into the first series because we wanted to try and create the ironmongery look. But in actual fact, because it's a sitcom and there's blanket lighting and you can't get round that, everything just looked grey as opposed to ironmongery.
The whole look of the second series just went up a notch. It all just got a little bit brighter.
But we still had to use the same set. We couldn't throw the set away and start again, or at least we didn't think we could. So we tried to just give it more life.
We did add colour in the second one. We had a little more money to spend on it then. But I always thought it was a question of just feeding so much colour in, all the effect of emptiness would be lost somehow.
Now we had our sort of plot scene. We knew we could do science fiction plots, and we liked the, you know, exploring the individuals. We were sort of forced into creating their backstories much more realistic.
Grandma tried to explain, you know. She said he'd gone away and he wasn't coming back. So I wanted to know where, like, you know. She said he was very happy and he'd gone to the same place as me goldfish. So I thought they'd flushed him down the bar. Acting-wise, I'd gone away and done a thing called The Marksman as well, which was this drama set in Ireland where I got to play a villain. I'd done that and I was a little bit more comfortable in my skin. Where did you get the helmet? Or I could do it. Where did you get the helmet? Do you know what I'm saying?
The concept of going outside Red Dwarf was something we didn't want to entertain initially because it opens a can of worms to do with alien landscapes and all that stuff.
We didn't want it to look like it was shot in a quarry in Wales and be all Doctor Who-ified.
But then we did think, well, actually planets exist. You can go onto a planet. It'll be fine. So it was partly that, and partly, yeah, you know, budgetarily, we reworked the show so that we could go outdoors.
We had all the basic model shots of Red Dwarf in space in the can, so we had more of a budget to spend on new model shots, and we even had a location budget.
That's the Gearbox, man, I'm telling you.
Blue Midget was different, and once again, even enable change of colour and to give people big blue washes from space, but it was very small, especially the rear seat. It was quite tricky lighting people in that. I couldn't light from above, and I started to put lights within the set.
I built it, yes. And Peter Ray came up with that marvellous Tonka toy thing that went erratically all around. It was a lovely thing. It was a fun house of mine. Because mine was more like a little conventional spaceship.
I just can't wrap my head round it.
Removing the pixel effect was great. You know, that's what I always wanted, was to see me as I am. You know, the deadpan, droll, cheeky, you know, all those elements, so you could see the actual person. But it was important not to see the neck, and we had the double-sided tape on the polo black polo neck.
Donna Di Stefano, little Italian pocket dynamite she was, and she was charged with she was our nanny, basically. She was our nanny, governess.
4.5 foot tall, but would beat you up.
I'm not bossy, I'm lovable. Really nice. If you've got a problem, come to me and I'll sort it out for you.
She was really doing 4 people's jobs, but she had this kind of interesting relationship with the cast.
We were all sort of quite keen footballers, and so we used to bring a ball in, and at lunch break, you know, they're big, those rehearsal rooms in Acton. We'd clean all the stuff, all the debris around to the sides, all the props and stuff like that, and we'd have a game of like 3 a side, 2 a side.
We would scoff lunch quickly so we could get back to the rehearsal room and have a game of football.
Of course, it was frowned upon, like we were banging the ball off windows. It was only a matter of time before the window broke on the 4th floor and the glass fell down.
Norman, you know, his dream was to be a football player, and he always said if it wasn't for the art attack, I could have been a professional.
We were playing, and I don't know, it was 2-2 or something. We were playing for a winner, so do me a favour, let's play for the winner, give us a break. It's something stupid like that. She said, if I'll take the ball, and she took the ball away and hid and locked it in a cupboard.
Lovett wouldn't go back to work until he got his ball back, and he almost walked out. You can't have my ball, where's my ball? Isn't it? And yeah, he made a big fuss about it.
I was the only BBC representative in the studio, the rehearsal studios, about health and safety. We had metal poles that were there to represent doorways that you could hurt yourself with.
If someone would have fallen over and hurt themselves, as you know, the insurance would have just been disastrous.
I thought what she did was wrong, and I thought what I did was wrong as well. I reacted badly to it, I thought. But I said, I'm not doing any lines until I get my ball back.
He doesn't mention that the day afterwards when he told me he wasn't going to utter one more word, and I had to give him the ball back, that the next day he damaged his ankle and I had to give him first aid. And luckily he wasn't one of the characters that had to walk anywhere.
They're dead. Who's dead? They are dead. They're all dead. My God. Well, I was only away 2 minutes.
Having a robot of any description, I was very, very against it, just because it's a cliche in science fiction things. From the 50s, I just thought we'll steer clear of that, and it was really another obstacle we'd put in our own way, just in case anything got easy ever. But we sort of agreed it would be okay to have a robot guest star, because we were looking for guest stars and we could afford them this time, and you can't have aliens, so what the hell are you going to have?
We decided to cast David Ross, and this was a bit of our own casting. And we wanted David because we worked with him on Wrinkles.
Hello, Tom. Busy, are you?
Yeah, I'm chopping down this tree.
You haven't seen Arnold, have you?
No.
Haven't you?
No.
You haven't seen Arnold then, have you not?
No. Stand back. It's coming down.
You haven't seen him then?
No.
Arnold?
No.
I have.
Have you?
Yeah. do you know where I saw him, Tom?
No.
He was up that tree.
Was supposed to be a sort of elderly inmate of this old people's home. I was probably only in my late 30s, early 40s at that stage, but I was playing someone who was 70 or 80, which I have done on quite a few occasions, actually.
He was just supreme with audiences. He knew where the laughs were, he knew how to time the lines, he knew how to feed them and milk them, and whatever you wrote for David, you got twice the reaction.
Just sort of really enhances your own performance, you know. Just a treat to have a real bona fide actor, love, you know, on the poop deck at playtime.
A real actor's lovey, a real lovey actor. He's very good at Crichton. I thought he was brilliant.
I think they thought he was slightly eccentric when they first met him. But when they saw what he was doing in front of an audience, it kind of lit up the whole show. And I think even when David went off, wasn't involved in the rest of that series, a lot of what David brought to the show stayed with them.
He was just the right character to play somebody who had spent his years and years and years dementedly looking after dead people. The Mask was a collusion, I think, of special effects and makeup and prosthetics people.
That came as a bit of a shock because I'm very, very claustrophobic, and to have one of those plaster Paris casts on your head is actually a really, really scary experience.
Basically what you had to do, and Robert Llewellyn had to go through it in the future, is they stick a straw in your mouth and pad up your nose and cover you in latex.
And then you have to wait, I can, from memory, something like 20 minutes for it to set before they can take it off. And it was really frightening, actually, because I had to hold someone's hand constantly. Your heart rate goes up and you're kind of constantly sort of indicating your watch, you know, how long have I to go yet? And they'd say, oh, it's okay, David, it's only another 10 minutes or another 8 minutes. You're thinking, thank God, you know, as soon as we get through this, I'll be fine.
We manufactured the Crichton mask as one of our foam prosthetics, and it was handed over to makeup on every occasion. I know that the early ones were really hard work.
Because I think it was all separate plates. It was all put on separately. It wasn't just a pull-on bank robber job. It was like, you know, sort of separate plates and all that were all sort of melded together.
It took 8 hours to do that original makeup because it was new to the girls who were doing it.
We didn't have enough time, basically, between rehearsals and the performance in front of the audience to do his makeup, so he had to be made up in the morning and then live with it all day.
Because the character becomes very sort of rebellious at the end of the episode, I thought the best way to do that would be to make him very gentle and very proper in the beginning. So he kind of had a huge long journey to become this kind of rebellious character who sticks his fingers and swivel on that. Any kind of mask work, which is really what that was, it was like it's wearing a mask basically, alters your whole sort of demeanour in a way, because the best thing to do if you're doing a mask work or doing something like Crichton is to stand in front of the mirror and see how this creature moves, you know, how his head turns. That's how I devised the whole performance, was by sort of creating a sort of, not exactly an automaton, but creating someone who moved in a very specific manner which seemed to fit in with the head, which was like kind of questioning. And, are you sure, sir? You know, is that okay, sir?
When we actually came to cast Crichton in Series 3, we wanted David Ross, but he was busy doing something brilliant somewhere.
And, you know, it's quite weird to think this, but if he had been available, he would have been Crichton in the later series.
And originally at that time, we filmed up in Manchester on a Sunday night, so it was always clear for me as an actor working in the theatre, I was still always free to go up there and do it if I'd be doing other jobs. Now, when the next series came along, I was actually working at the Old Vic, and it was a very successful production that I was in, and it lasted for quite a long time. I think we were there for about 6 or 7 weeks, all of which clashed with the Red Dwarf job. So I had 2 jobs running 6 weeks each. Now, I possibly could have done, because once the play had opened, one is free in the daytime to rehearse Red Dwarf, so I could have done both. But then they changed the recording day in Manchester to a Friday night, which meant I was on stage on a Friday night. So I sadly lost the role.
Crichton leaves on his little space bike, and this one was built totally separately from the Lister bike. And it was a mechanism that I made, again all battery powered, but it had a twist grip throttle, and it had a little mechanism for leaning the bike over when you turned a corner.
One of my favourite moments, I think, from Red Dwarf is that skeleton moment. And I remember when that show went out, other people who work in the industry phoning me up and going and sending me messages going, I watched that, that was really funny.
The audience reaction is immense. And I still think you can see the odd corpse going on amongst the actors. I don't know who is guilty, but you couldn't use any other take apart from that one where the audience go absolutely berserk.
For the recording, that entire scene was covered up. There was a huge black across it because it had to be set from the top, but the audience weren't allowed to see it. There was a big thing during rehearsals that that cloth would not be dropped until the moment that David Ross walked into that set.
You don't see the drape going up on camera, obviously, but you still get the impact. And if you run to record, you know, you're recording drape up, bang in with the line, you get the surprise and the buzz about it.
Unfortunately, we moved from one set to the other, and the crew just took the cloth down.
For whatever reason, the bloody drape went up and we weren't ready. And of course, the audience went, none of it on tape. I wasn't happy by it.
Then I heard profanity and a slam of a door. Now, BBC Manchester, the gallery was upstairs, and there's a metal staircase comes down into the studio. I heard the slam of the door, and then clang, 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 clang. And round the corner of the audience block came Mr. Paul Jackson, who then, Paul, standing not more than an inch from me, berated me for at least a minute at full volume in front of the audience.
I had a brilliant assistant who said to me after working with me for a bit, Paul, just take your shoes off when you're sitting in the gallery, because the galleries at the BBC used to be up a flight of corrugated spiral staircase. And she said to me, just take your shoes off. And I said, why? And she said, because when you lose your temper and go screaming down on the floor, you won't be able to run down the corrugated staircase with no shoes on. By the time you got your shoes on, because I am like, I go up and then hopefully I don't do it at all now, but I did.
It's a distress call from a ship called the Nova 5. They crash-landed.
What I wanted to do with that was get the feeling of a spaceship on its side with a swinging light. Something ought to be vertical and it ought to be the light. The rest of the ship at an angle give that impression.
I suspect it was a problem for cameras and things like that, but it gave me a lot of opportunity to introduce these colours, green corridors, and pick out the hanging baskets.
The whole thing was built on a tilt, so they had to haul themselves up corridors and around corners. It was, yes, it was a little bit like a fun fair.
But again, there was Esperanto in there.
Oh, si, amor, oui.
In the future, everybody will speak Esperanto.
Although I couldn't actually believe that this was a real language. I actually doubted everyone that, oh, it's a real language. And I thought, why? You know, who needs this language?
Bob and Doug just wanted to make it feel more in the future that we would all be sort of like equal, you know, all mixing together, so there'd be one language that everybody spoke. But then you have to do it in English so that everybody at home here can understand. You can't do it in Esperanto. So I just put a bit in the background. So, you know, off I went, got my book, dictionary, did a few phone calls.
And there was a kind of like a headquarters for Esperanto in Kensington. And every time I looked at it, I thought that's a cover for a government agency or aliens.
Novello, I think we ended up just using on the sets because it was a short word. But when you came to things like personnel only or do not go that way, the Esperanto got longer and longer and longer, so you thought, got no space to put it in.
So now people watching it will think it's some great groovy language that we made up, but actually it was Esperanto, and if you look that up on the net, you'll find that that's a sort of universal language which is crap.
Gentlemen, welcome to Better Than Life. Now you must be hungry, and there's a restaurant just a couple of miles down the beach.
A couple of miles? How are we supposed to get there?
Anywhere you want. After all, this is Better Than Life.
Better Than Life actually is one of my favourite episodes, you know, in all of the Red Dwarf series.
It was a good technique to get there, which was Craig would open a door, and then we cut round the other side, and you see him opening the door the other side, and there's a door just in the middle of Rill Beach with a spaceship through the door. Got a big laugh, rightly so, because it was a nicely constructed and well-placed gag.
The budget really was too small for what we were trying to do, and Rob and I weren't helping anything by writing things like A Beach in Paradise.
It's there in the script. They wake up on a beach in paradise. And, you know, how stupid were we? We must have thought we were going to go to Mozambique or something, but no.
Where do we go? Rill.
And they lied to us, you know. Oh, yeah, we're going to go to Spain for a couple of weeks. Yeah, we're going to do this and, like, yeah, we're going to do it on location. And, yeah, we'll get to Spain.
Nothing personal against the Welsh, but Rill Beach ain't Barbados.
Being on Rill Beach in the middle of what seemed like winter, drinking cocktails in Hawaiian shirts, those days are better forgotten.
Great beaches, the tide went right out, you know. But yeah, it was suffering. Everyone was suffering a bit.
Neither are we. I think that's it, innit?
May in Rill, horizontal rain, tides coming in rather quickly.
But it's raining. It's grey. Oh, well, we can tweak it, we can tweak it.
Is that going to be okay? Yeah, no, that's going to be fine. Rill will be fine. Honestly, we will get the special lenses and we'll get, you know, gels on it. It will look really warm and great. Oh, okay. And then, of course, you show up and you think, this is Rill Beach. It's really cold. This isn't going to work.
Nobody can make that look like paradise. I'm sorry, Rill Tourist Board. Can't be done.
They had wanted a jungle in Rill, and it's in front of the car park, which is full of cars. So as far as the eye could see the cars, and he wanted a jungle. And I had to raid all the, be nice to all the parks people there, and all the garden centres. And got an assortment of plants and shrubs and whatever.
This has got to be paradise, this has. 11 in the morning and not a single German beach towel in sight.
The boys were sitting on their Bermuda deck chairs, wearing Bermuda shorts and shirts, and freezing. And quite a lot was done, but they were having major issues because they were shivering so much and they couldn't talk because their mouths wouldn't work.
The guys had to sit there pretending they were enjoying the sun, and it was bitterly cold. I mean, honestly, Danny was turning blue. His teeth were chattering while he was saying, God, this is paradise, pass me another pina colada. And they had to, in between takes, they had to come up with warm thermo blankets, wrap him up, cardiac resuscitators. It was terrible.
From the top, as before. We take Holly out.
Yeah, I'm gonna be cool this time, baby. It's 110 degrees in the shade. We're in the Bahamas and shit.
The guys were so cold and so uncomfortable. We just had to remount. In fact, at one point, I remember Ed talking about going inside into the, I don't know what it was like the swimming pool, garden house place, and that we could remount it in there and not to worry, and that would still look like a beach in paradise. Like, what?
The Rill Sun Centre is a swimming pool, basically. But it's a tropical swimming pool with flumes and slides and whatever. The difficulty of shooting inside the Sun Centre would have been that they refused to close it. So we would have shot everything with hundreds of kids running around, as you do in any swimming pool.
Bye, please.
We got a motorcycle and an E-Type Jag onto the beach. Now, actually getting them onto the beach wasn't that difficult. Hiding the fact that we were putting them on a beach to the company that we'd hired them from was more difficult.
I didn't realise until I'd ordered all these vehicles that sand with the salt can rust. So I was thinking, please get them off the sand as quickly as possible before we get another bill to replace parts on the car.
Sorry about the gearbox, lads.
And when the car pulls away, that's me driving it. Rocket, who was the cameraman on the shoot, put the camera right in, probably 3-4 inches behind the back wheel on the first take when I floored the Jag and sprayed the lens of the camera with so much sand that it got everywhere. It scratched the lens, it got inside the workings of the lens.
The tide is always coming in more quickly than you think it's coming in. And the E-Type did get stuck on the beach. And then I think we tried to pull it out with a Land Rover. And I think that got stuck as well. So everything just happened incredibly quickly.
Everyone was a bit like, look, get me off this beach. This was worse than being at Dunkirk.
I seem to think that the sun came out at some point in the afternoon with the boys' heads in the sand. The So maybe there was just a lot of lights, I'm not sure.
At the time that we buried the cast up to their necks in sand, I couldn't think of anything I wanted to do more.
The temptation to just walk away and leave them was huge. Or to actually throw things at them.
Our faces have been smeared with jam and we're about to be eaten alive by killer ants. Why not?
God dear, you can't take him anywhere, can you?
You spoil this, Rimmer. We're gonna die, we're all gonna die, and it's all my fault. And then we're gonna kill the
What we actually did, of course, was get 4 prop guys to dig a dirty great hole, which originally we had planned for them to stand in. However, digging on real beach isn't as easy as you might think. So I think it was about 3 feet deep. So they're kneeling inside with their bums down on their heels.
Because sand can stop you from breathing because it pushes onto your ribcage, they didn't put them in and then fill it up. They put a board around them and then layered it with sand on top, so it looked like they were actually buried.
What's that? That's my foot. Don't tickle him. I've got badly tickle his feet, man.
Is that you, Dan?
Yeah.
Sorry, mate. I didn't know it was you. I've been leaning on you all along.
Can we go now?
I remember marvellous moments going, I don't think there's enough jam on Chris's face, and someone having to crawl out like it was quicksand over this piece of wood to put an extra bit of jam, and then they'd go, no, not there. They go, yeah, where? And then have to do it again.
Is that jam running, Helen? No, right. Is it running? Oh, it's probably frozen in this weather anyway. God, that bloody jam. It's the smell. I don't care about it being on my face. It's the smell of it. It's the chemicals they put in it, the preservatives and stuff.
That's right.
The E tooth.
E numbers.
Yeah, the E numbers. They smell. Those letters smell.
I was in the back of a lorry, sitting there in front of a camera, and I'm on a monitor there, and the monitor is buried in the sand. But I'm in the lorry, back of the lorry. The other guys are in the sand, buried in the sand. I felt really smug about that. I like that.
Yeah, Norm. Can you come in any later, Norm? How about speeding that line up a bit? You could get the first act of Ben Hur in there.
I hear not what you say.
Okay, get him out. Be careful, guys.
It's a gravestone to the memory of Lisa Yates.
Who's Lisa Yates?
You're not going to believe this, but I used to go out with a girl called Lisa Yates.
Thanks for the Memory was a really clever, complex plot. I mean, I thought that when you read that series, that was the episode that stood out as being the sort of flagship for the series. In actual fact, I think in reality, when you view the series as a whole, it doesn't necessarily do that. But on paper, that was the one.
That's what I thought.
BAFTA.
I thought it was a great idea to do a whodunit in this scenario when there's only them there. I think I'm really chuffed with that show. I think it's very clever.
It's like a detective story, do you know what I mean? It's like unpicking the plot and getting to it.
I think we were really we really by this time we'd thrown off our shackles and said, we're doing science fiction, you can fire us if you want.
Oh yes, the observation dome. That was one of my favourites. I love that observation dome. Peter Raggs designed part of the observation room, and I sort of built the top part in the studio.
We didn't use it very much, but the observation dome sounded like a good plan at the time. We wanted somewhere you could have a different mood. Lister and Rimmer would stop just bickering all the time, which gets very tired very quickly. And we're actually sort of getting on slightly, at least having conversations.
We wanted, hey, where's the pathos set? Well, the stuff where we can do the real drama, you know, where the kitchen bin isn't going to collapse and the whole we want something really solid. But then we kind of dropped much of the pathos in season 3 as it kind of broadened, so we didn't really go back to it, which, I don't know, maybe that was a shame.
I thought it looked rather nice, the way they combined the studio with the model. And it really did look as though the spaceship was in space. And when they sort of climbed up, it's right at the very top, I thought that was quite moving, really.
I want a triple fried egg sandwich with chili sauce and chutney.
You what?
It's a state of the art, Sawney.
It's the state of the floor I'm worried about.
These days, you know, I look on the back for the E numbers immediately, but then I probably should have done then. But you know, the chili chutney, fried egg chili chutney sandwich was pretty tasty, really. You'd eat anything some of those nights.
What's it taste like?
Bloody disgusting, that.
We'll go from I'm a little
That was a bizarre. Just explain why I did that.
Maybe I could really be good. Someone to watch over me.
I remember being rather crap at it. And now I always think that, you know, Rob and Doug were sitting there saying, if only we'd thought about this, thought ahead, and got someone who had a little bit of a song and dance background, these bits would have been a lot easier, a bit like later episodes. But you see, maybe someone who was good at the old song and dance might not have had the that is required to be the goit that we all know Rimmer to be.
I was asked to take Holly outside, and I ended up building a little caterpillar tractor robot that would carry a monitor and career around all over the place. And it would actually do about 20 miles an hour around the workshop. It was very fleet indeed. It could stop itself very, very quickly, but of course the monitor couldn't. So we got through a couple of monitors before we got things fined down a bit.
Quite tricky because we had to sometimes shoot the TV for real. I wasn't able to wipe in because it's moving. You can't. You can now, but then you couldn't do a travelling wipe very easily. So we had to try and make sure that the lighting conditions were good enough so that we could see him.
I left open a couple of channels so that we could get a battery-powered VHS machine on and pre-record Holly's sequences and simply turn them on and off as required. That was my grand master plan, but unfortunately the Vision Services boys felt that this wasn't completely adequate, so the Holly robot ended up dragging a video cable out behind it so that they could pipe the signal down to the monitor.
I was given the extraordinary task for this episode to find a lunar surface, remembering of course that it has to be somewhere drivable from Manchester.
He would drive and I'd direct him, whatever. And we stayed along the coast of Wales. So from Rhyl, we went round and we came up to this quarry.
It was a reclaimed garbage dump, and as the dawn came and things warmed up, we could tell.
When they do land reclamation, what they do is they pile up all this rubbish, they compact it down, then they burn it. Then they cover it with soil. So what you actually get is the ground glowing, which was absolutely perfect for us. Sadly, all that stuff went out in the fortnight between us seeing it and actually shooting it, so you never get to see that.
The stench when we got there. But we booked it, we hadn't got any alternative, so we had to do it.
I'm sure all our ailments are because of that day. I blame everything that happens to me on that day. If I get a cold, I say it was the landfill site.
That was a location I thought was incredibly smelly. I really like that. I think it's because it seemed vaguely otherworldly, as opposed to here you are just in this contemporary hotel and here you are on Rhyl Beach.
And I also remember it because it was the night that Craig's son was born, I think.
My son Jack was born while we were in a quarry in Flint, and they were saying, we'll get you, Craig, we'll get you there, we'll get you to the hospital in North London, we've got a car on standby.
He had to get away and he was panicking like crazy.
I didn't know, I was just waiting there for the line, you know, no one said to me. Sorry, no, I was just there waiting for the line, you know. And I got in the car, raced off to Whittington Hospital in North London, and I arrived 20 minutes late for the birth of my son. He just got handed to me like that, so I didn't have to... yeah, I mean, and there are mixed feelings about that. One, I didn't have to go through all the icky business. And I got a beautiful smiling baby. But two, you kind of, you know, wish that you could have been there for for support.
What it did leave us with, though, was a real problem because we'd only shot half of what we were supposed to, but luckily had done all the dialogue. So what was left to do was the carrying of the gravestone and a couple of other bits and pieces that Craig could revoice because you couldn't really see through the face masks. And in the end, I did it. Through the whole scene, Craig, or Lister, is wearing a plaster cast because he's broken his leg. And I had to put this plaster cast on. Well, one, it didn't really fit because he's got smaller feet than me. When it's on one leg, it's Craig, and when it's not on either leg, it's because it was too painful for me to wear and we thought we might get away with it.
The floor manager, Mike Agnew, bravely stepped into the frame, and I think he actually broke the wrong foot.
Somebody tackled me about this at one of the conventions, Red Dwarf conventions, and I was about to apologise for it, and he went, no, I know why you did it. And I said, what? I know why you switched the broken leg from one leg to the other. And I went, why? He said, because you were seeing that in a flashback, so it was a mirror. And I went, yes, that's right. Well done for noticing. And I walked away.